Everybody, welcome to Point3Podcast, the season premiere, season 3, episode 1, kicking it off with a big one here, something we've all been anticipating for the past year and some change. Finally here as of yesterday, Daredevil Born Again. It's 2-episode premiere. We're going to be talking everything from no spoilers to then spoilers a little bit later on in the pod. So if this is your first time here, or if you are an avid listener, thank you so much for joining us once again. We are the podcast that comes to you live every Wednesday. So make sure you subscribe to us over on YouTube, and you also listen to us wherever you listen to your podcast. But we are your favorite trio of hosts, myself, Hero Scroll, Lou to my right, and Spider Brando down below. But gentlemen, let's just jump right into it. Right. No time to waste in this huge, momentous week in the Point3 podcast. But as always, we always do 3 very important things here at Point3. That is keep watching, keep reading, and keep nerding out. Spider Brando, tossing it over to you. What is this week's keep watching?
We keep watching Invincible. We got episode 7 tomorrow, and everything that I'm hearing about it, well, not even hearing, but just from how last episode ended and seeing the teasers for it, I'm excited. We're hopefully getting some peak. And as always, watching it in Discord. So join tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. I will be streaming it in there, and it's always a blast. But I love Invincible this season so far, and I'm excited. Really excited for the final 2 episodes. That's all I got. Daredevil got me hyped.
Yeah. I was going to say penultimate episode for Invincible, right?
Yes.
Yep.
It's crazy. They have a lot of loose ends to wrap up, and they still have they ended like episode 4 off in a cliffhanger in one of the storylines in that show, and haven't gone back to it. And then now they have 2 episodes, and then just had last episode as a cliffhanger. So I was like, shit, they got a lot to do in 2 episodes. But I don't know. I know they're like barely this much through the comic out of like a really big book. So I know they have a lot of story to tell, and wasn't expecting like so much to get wrapped up this season. But man, I'm excited for season 4 and 5 and the rest to come, and just for the ending of season 3 also.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, like kind of what we said in previous weeks before, that if you're not watching Invincible this season, definitely get back on into it. If season 2 lost you, completely understandable. We've talked at length as to why that was. But yeah, no, this season came back swinging very hard for a lot of people, and us included here at Point3. And it will definitely get its own time to shine as soon as the season's done. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And as SB said, make sure you stay over on Discord, because not only do they eat first, we actually do a bunch of watch parties, both for Invincible and then also the weekly ones that are going to be coming out for Daredevil Born Again every Tuesday at what time?
Oh, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. when the episodes drop on Disney Plus.
There you go. I had to ask because I was lost on what time it was.
I had a blank for a second. I was like, wait, what time? I don't know. I was like, what time should I schedule it for? But then it's just the episode doesn't come out until 9 p.m. So
yeah. Well, there you go. 9 p.m.
We got Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays with us. Just think about that with Daredevil, The Live, and then Invincible.
Yeah. I mean, again, our fans eating very well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very well. All right. Second part of the 3 most important things we do every week: keep reading. And this week, gentlemen, I read Devil's Reign. Finally got around to it. The Daredevil focused event that happened in Marvel Comics about 2 years ago now at this point. Very interesting event. It's basically when Kingpin becomes mayor and outlaws all vigilantes. I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was really cool. It was really cool to see the dynamic that Kingpin had with all of the characters in the story. It was cool to see how all the heroes had to deal with this in their own different ways and what that meant for them. Without going too much into spoiler territory for this story, in case you are interested in reading it for yourself, um, there's a lot of supervillains that I think are missing from both the greater MCU and in Daredevil as well, that I don't think this type of a storyline would be doable. Right? If you kind of heard our Born Again video, it kind of echoes that same the comic run Born Again video. It echoes that same statement where there's just too many missing pieces for them to fully adapt this right now. This could be done a couple years down the road. But I think in a perfect world, it kind of goes along with our MCU Kingpin redo as well, where it's like, this is something they could have done. I just don't think we'll get it fully. But there are some bits that we are seeing currently within Daredevil Born Again, the Disney Plus show. So, Blue, have you read the story? Do you enjoy it? Is it?
I have, and I revisited again last week in preparation kind of for the new Disney Plus show. I just don't think the street level is there yet. And then kind of given what we've seen so far, I don't know if this will ever be something that happens in the MCU. However, we'll see how, things kind of manifest here in the later episodes of season 1, and maybe it's a season 2 piece. We don't know. We're going to see. But if they pulled it off somehow and we just got all these characters and these storylines, maybe we're talking about one of the greatest Disney Plus series of all time if they make it happen and make it actually work. No, huge fan. And again, I know we kind of touched on like they might be taking inspiration from Devil's Reign. It's really just the mayor piece and the vigilante outlaw storyline, I think, with Fisk for the most part. So, I think speaking of Daredevil, I think we're nerding out about it. The third of the 3 things that we do. Keep nerding out. Guys, everywhere we go, every person I've talked to in any of my circles of friends, co-workers, everyone is talking about Daredevil Born Again. So let's not waste any more time. We got a 2-part live stream that's going to be heavily focused on Daredevil Born Again. If you guys didn't know, the last 2 episodes did drop. I love 2-episode premieres, by the way. I think it's so great. And seeing these 2 episodes specifically, I would have been super salty knowing that this second episode was coming. I think it was a great way to do it. But for all you watching live, this is going to be a spoiler-free section. It's going to be light. I think it's going to be some general thoughts. And then stick around if you want for our spoiler section. So giving you a warning, if you're listening to this or if you're watching it on YouTube, it's coming. So let's jump into it, gents. Let's jump into it. And by the way, quick PSA, if you guys haven't jumped into our Discord, please do, because we're talking about this show pretty much every day. And we've been talking about this show. So if you're a Marvel fanatic, definitely join our Discord. Link is in the bio. Check out the description wherever you are watching this or wherever you accessed it. But without further ado here, Spider Brando, I'm going to kick it to you first, man. You were anticipating these. You have been eating good as a fan of superheroes lately. How did this stack up for you? How did you feel about the first 2 episodes?
So it's a roller coaster of emotions. I will say that. Non-spoiler territory. But I really enjoyed it. I think we are back with Daredevil, and I've been seeing a lot of hate on it on the internet, like you brought up earlier during before the live. And I don't really agree with a lot of it. It's at first I rated it like an 8 after immediately after watching it. And over the next 12 hours or so, when I was at the gym, I was thinking about it more and gave it a 9. for episode 1 and a 9.2 for episode 1 and a 9 for episode 2. And I thought they were really good. They delivered on bringing like the brutality that we saw from the Netflix show back, and we got to see some really cool stuff within the first episode that we haven't seen in the Netflix show. And episode 2 was just episode 2 felt like a classic Netflix Daredevil of nice action, heavy dialogue, and like just emotion throughout the episode. So I really enjoyed it. It started off with a bang to return to Hell's Kitchen after 7 years.
7 years. That's wild.
7 years, yeah, right? Like it's crazy to think about. I did a philosophy project on Daredevil season 2 in high school, and now we're back of like Daredevil Born Again.
Real quick, we kind of talked about this last Wednesday, but do you feel like that bridge from the Netflix Daredevil to Born Again was just seamless? Like it felt like they picked up where they kind of left off in season 3, or at least took enough of it from season 3 to make it feel like if they said this is Daredevil season 4, you'd be like, okay.
That's where it's still a little tricky. I think they still kind of just like left it. They could have done more, I think, of tying it together. But I like what they did, and kind of like it is a little bit of a soft reboot.
Fair enough. Hero, how'd you feel, man?
Oh, it was fantastic to get Matt Murdock Daredevil on our screens again. A Wilson Fisk that felt pretty good. You know, that's something that if you've been listening to us for a while, something we've been a little bit down on within the MCU. But even though it is only 2 episodes and we're not into the thick of it yet, with what they have given us, I will say it feels like an improvement so far. Hopefully they can stick the landing when it comes to that. But so far has delivered on the action, the storytelling, right? The weight of feeling what Matt feels throughout this show. These first 2 episodes do a very good job of it. And then also some wonky effects aside, right? I do think they tried to do a couple things new that we haven't seen before in terms of how kind of the agility of Daredevil, and it doesn't translate super well at the start, but I feel like that's something that I could put aside, and I think a lot of us can too. Just because the fights that we have gotten so far have been great. They've been brutal. Characterized the characters very well, and we'll get into some of that in the spoiler section as well. But the way that the directors use everything within the show to direct your eye and your senses to really see it all through Daredevil and Matt, as he is Matt Murdock, it's just great. It's just really, really good. I think I give both episodes honestly like an 8.5. I'd add a little more action, and you know, for those that probably don't like the more slow burn pace that, you know, Daredevil can have, this might not be for you. But I feel like if that's something you are in for, if you like that, if you like the slow burn storytelling and just good storytelling in general, with great characters, you're really going to enjoy Daredevil Born Again. Like, you're thoroughly going to enjoy it. And if I think if you are a fan of the Netflix series, you're going to enjoy this as well. Like, it truly just feels like they kind of, like you said, they just picked it up and kept going. Even though it's been that long, they just found a way to incorporate what has happened and keep rolling with it.
Yeah, I think to that point, a lot of, you know, that was one of the biggest questions going into it not only for us as the podcast, but just kind of the internet in general. Like when we saw this was announced, there were people who were like, oh, nothing's canon from Netflix. Like, how are they going to do this? And then we're like, hey, it's all on the table type of thing in the end, right before this debuted. And then you have like, but we have stuff that is canon, and how are they going to incorporate that? Because it really wasn't stuff we loved. I mean, that's kind of, go check out our last video, like Kingpin sucks in the MCU type of thing. So there are a lot of questions. And the really cool part about this now in hindsight, seeing how they executed episode 1 and 2, to me, it feels like they very much understood their fan base. And I don't think that they shied away from being like, hey, we get it. Netflix, Daredevil, Defenders, those characters, they're being assimilated into the MCU, and you guys haven't seen them yet. And for a lot of people, that's just like, I can't wrap my head around it. What is canon? What's not? Like, we want to see, and get answers, right? And through episode 1 and 2, I know that there are still things that are left unsaid, but I thought it was two things really stuck out to me. And again, these truthfully are non-spoiler. The characters that they chose to put in the show in the first 15 minutes of episode 1, and the way that they directed the episode, the filmography, how they use their camera angles, the sounds, the sights, the tones, the setting, all of those things created an experience for me, and my wife and I were watching it, that instantly puts you into the episode. Everything else was gone. I don't know where I was. I was sitting on the couch. I was watching it. I was so immersed in the episode, and they hooked me so quickly that some questions that I was like, okay, where is this coming? Never happened. Never happened. I didn't question it. From the very beginning, I got that like gut-wrenching feeling from the jump of like, something's about to happen right now? Like, we're doing this now? That's how I felt. And it just, that momentum really carried me through episode 1. And episode 2, I think they took another step forward, which we'll get into here in a minute. But I really think they executed on giving you just a taste of what is to come, but also giving you a taste to be like, hey, I know you guys like this dish. Here you go. It's not the full course meal yet, but we're going to give you a sampler to be like, I hear you.
Nice appetizer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, here's a really, really big underrated thing for me. Of all the characters that we got, there's one specific character that made me feel the Netflix vibes the most, and that was Vanessa. And I'm very, very glad that they did not recast Vanessa, because I think that really would hurt the show overall. Again, if you didn't know that, surprise. I mean, that's just out there. But I'll kind of talk about why a little bit later, but I think she's a very important piece to make us feel familiar, especially for Kingpin. Certain things happen in episode 1 and 2 to where if that was a different person, that would have felt super weird. But seeing that face and tying it in with the actions and the scenes and where we leave off in episode 2, like, to me, it's money. It really is. So I'm not going to overglaze the episodes, but I will say I think they're solid. I could throw a decimal point out there, but for me, they're not 10 out of 10s. They feel like 10 out of 10s, though. That's a 9 out of 10, but I think that they hit on both episodes cleanly, and we all had pretty high expectations for this.
Honestly, yeah. And I was going to say that to me, that's probably the most impressive thing out of it, where it had, out of all the MCU Disney Plus projects, this was the one that had to, especially at least with the premiere, it had to hook people in and hit in the way that people remembered. And I think they've done that, right? Or again, kind of like we've talked about that. It doesn't feel like a Disney Plus show. It feels like you're watching a different streaming service in a way. And you forget until it ends, and you're like, "Oh crap, I'm on Disney Plus." And that's impressive. That's impressive that Disney really did let them go as far as we felt they should, and they exemplify that very well at the start of the show, And throughout the first 2 episodes, right, there's just certain things that they do that you're like, oh man, okay, we're not pulling punches here. And it's not just, oh, they're saying some bad words. No, it's like we're going in, and that's pretty cool to see. So shout out to them for knowing what they needed to do and executing it well. Even though there have been complaints of people, but I think the people that complain, and we'll kind of go into it more detailed in the spoiler section, I think don't really fully either one watch the original show in that way, and 2 don't know what they themselves want either.
Yeah, to that point really quick, I mean, I think again we always look at these shows through 2 lenses, the greater MCU and then the project itself specifically, but no show, in my opinion, has created a world better than Daredevil has, where New York City feels like legitimate New York City. And when I see New York City and other projects, I'm like, nah, man, like, why can't you have Daredevil's New York City? Like, that's the New York that I want to get, like a real grounded New York, the gritty people on the streets. It makes everything else feel so much better. The reporters, the crime, the cops, the gangs, the mobs, like all of it just feels so much better and so much more realistic. There's no one who's going to sit here and be like, oh, that's a Marvel show. It's made for kids. No, it's not made for kids. I'm not letting my kids watch this show at all. Maybe when they're older, obviously. But this isn't like, let's go see the Marvels. This is like, it's releasing at 9 p.m. That's post bedtime. Like, you can go to bed so I can watch the show because it hits so hard and its themes are so good and so adult and so mature and real. Which, quick point I want to throw out here. For those that I've seen complaining of like, why are they doing it like it's real world, like it's relatable from the political standpoint? Coincidence? Because this show has been done. It's been written. The script was done. The production was done. All that filming was done. So if you're going to be like, wow, this just happened last week, newsflash, this has been done. So no, don't hold that against the show, please. I've seen a lot of that online and it's kind of weird to me. But yeah, I think that's like it happened with Brave New World, which is like, again, movie's been done. Like, sorry. This has, it pulls from the books. Like, dude, stuff is from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s. Like, that's the world. That's just it. Like, welcome to Marvel. I just pumped the brakes on the whole, like, I'm boycotting this because they stole from real life type of stuff. It's like, no, sorry.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like you said, you can't hold that against it. And to me, it speaks more to how good the show is, because if it has been done for about a year now and it's still able to be timely with what the people are going through that are watching it, like, that should sit with you, and for good reason, because it's real life. And I know that sometimes maybe we use these things to escape, and I still think we can, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But sometimes, series are going to have something to say. And that's just, and Daredevil is that character too. Like, you fundamentally don't understand Daredevil as a character, Punisher as a character, Kingpin, right? You don't understand these grounded characters if, when they're trying to tell you a message that involves the real world, you're like, no, I don't want to hear it. Ew, no, stop. Then that might not be the character for you.
Yeah. Go find some scrolls on Earth. No, psych, you're gonna run into the same problem. SB, quick question for you.
Yes.
You did the watch party. How did it feel watching this, talking about it, presenting it in the way that you did? Because I thought it was kind of interesting to know that, like, this is kind of a pseudo event. Like, we really wanted to, like, make this like a mini event, which you did, and you always do that, and we the podcast and fans of us will love that, and we love you for that 100%.
Thank you.
But like, did it feel bigger like a movie? You know what I mean? Like, what was the vibe of knowing that you were clicking this show on specifically to do a watch party for the Point 3 podcast?
It felt pretty good. I was shout out to Rome's for showing up for it. Me and him had a great time watching, and where it was really like just like as soon as the theme hit, as soon as we pressed play, it was like, damn, we're back. 7 years. Like I even pointed out, I was like, man, it's been 7 years since we were the last sitting down watching new freaking Daredevil. And it was nice to be able to talk and chat with him throughout the episode and kind of like I got to learn some more Daredevil insights from comics that I never really from runs I haven't read. And kind of helped out with some Easter egg pointing out, but it was great. Always a fun time with the watch parties, and I'm excited for next week's. I'm really always hyped for them. I try to hype up everything that we watch. I was just talking to someone the other day that he was saying how he was excited for like us to do the podcast and be able to talk about this stuff every day with each other, and how he was like happy to have me have like stuff like that. And I was like, well, like I'm happy to have you like along with the journey with us about like he started watching Invincible to catch up for it and hop into the watch parties and like keep up and chat with us. I'm like, this is beautiful. Like this is what I'm trying to do of spread the latest stuff with everybody and watch it and chat about it with people to hear their experiences.
Yeah. I think that's a really cool thing because I know we've pushed other shows and things, but like I think you said something two things that are really interesting, and I'm really glad you did. Is it's been 7 years, and although we've seen Daredevil, like it just kind of felt like it was like a long lost friend. Like Matt Murdock is like a long lost friend for the fans who's just been gone for a minute, and like we just caught you in passing, but we didn't spend much time with you, and it just felt so good to see Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, as Daredevil for almost 2 hours yesterday to be like, oh, it felt really, really good. Hero, go ahead.
We'll get to that. I was going to say, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But yeah, no, yeah. Great job in presenting it, SB, as well as, you know, everybody's favorite loud muffler car comes behind me. Yeah, it's just cool because I think that's also part of it. And again, if you're a first-time listener, something we do also say, it's kind of our tagline that we don't talk about as much, but enhancing your experience. It's things like this where maybe you were excited for Daredevil, but maybe like SB's friend, you didn't have anyone else to talk about it with, or it's been so long, maybe you forgot, or you just wanted more people to talk about it with. And it's like us being able to do that for you through things like the watch party, but then also now talk about it here on the live stream, talk about it post the live stream in, you know, other videos as well. That's just part of that. It's something we constantly do. That's why we say, hey, read, you know, the books, watch these things, nerd out about them, because those are the things that eventually and all do enhance your experience with whatever you are watching, reading, or nerding out about.
Very well said, gents. But is it spoiler time? I think we're right on the edge here where we just want to like break the dam and just really jump into it. So
I think it's
is
time.
It time?
I think it's time. Yeah.
SB?
I think it's time.
Yeah.
All right.
It's again, one last second for those of you watching live that maybe haven't seen it or watching it post. This is your official spoiler warning. We are going to be jumping into spoilers for Daredevil Born Again, the 2-episode premiere. So if you don't want to hear it, thank you so much for watching us up until this point. We really appreciate you. So, but make sure you come back, okay?
We're making it easy for you. The 30-minute marker. Just pause here, watch the episodes, come back, finish the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We'll get into the juicy stuff, but here I'm gonna sling it back around to you, man.
Yeah. So Nate, I think that's the topic that we need to address right away. Right? Nate asking, were each of you expecting that moment to happen, even at all in the series? What is Nate referring to? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have lost Foggy Nelson in the MCU. Foggy Nelson is no more. He passed at the hands of Daredevil's eventual arch nemesis, I think, at the end of this show, Bullseye. That's right. Bullseye snipes Foggy, then goes on a crazy rampage through this bar, culminating in Matt defeating him and actually trying to kill him.
Bro, he bounced off the pavement. I'll touch on one thing, but like
one could do that.
Dude, my guy was like,
that was
land.
Disgusting. I audibly like gasped watching that because it was nasty. The way
I freaked out a little bit.
It is like, it's a visceral moment. And I think that's kind of the thing that, and again, we'll go back to Foggy in just 1 second, but that's the kind of thing when we were like, hey, this is what we need Daredevil to do. That's that kind of stuff. Like, but the way that they fought all the way to that ending.
But real quick, I don't want to lose this moment because this right here all happened in the first 15 minutes of the show, by the way, in episode 1. Right?
Yeah.
But the detail that went into making us feel and elicit a response in the emotions that we had, we went from hearing Matt's senses, his heightened, like they're drinking, they're doing things, he's trying to spit some game to Karen. Foggy gets up, but bro, my guy is so aware, and he's like, yo, let me listen into my guy. Come to find out, Foggy didn't tell him this. He's trying to, like, I literally have it on my phone and he's doing it. He's doing it as I'm talking about this real time in the episode, which is disgusting. Oh my gosh, it's so good. But like the subtle things, Matt listening, the light bulb thing, the paper clip through the fly, and you're like, oh damn, it's Bullseye, he's about to kill everyone. Yeah. And then he does. And then the scene but just going backwards real quick, I just want to make sure I just don't miss this, and then I promise I'll shut up about it. My guy's head bounced off the pavement, and they zoom in on him, and you're like, no, he's dead, right? Like, you're thinking like he's definitely dead, and then he's like, eyes are open, and he's not dead, and you're like, hot, like he's coming back. Oh my gosh, bro. Just the way that they let you sit in these scenes and give you like 2 seconds is just nasty thoughts. Like, oh, he's not dead.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. And there's more to that I think we can definitely unpack, and I think we'll revisit in just a second. But the death of Foggy, going back to the original question, I think for a lot of us, that was something we expected, right? Unfortunately, set photos did come out through the production of the show, and Foggy's actor wasn't really around. So a lot of people just kind of assumed that Foggy wasn't going to make it, right? For them, though, to have delivered that within the first 15 minutes to establish the tone of what was going to happen kind of for the rest of the series, and to show you where Matt is going to be in his headspace, I think it was perfect. I know some people are upset about it, and I don't really know what to say to those people, because I think you got to remember this is called Daredevil Born Again, not Foggy Nelson Born Again.
I thought it was called Daredevil and Foggy.
Yeah.
A title character killed off the first
No.
Yeah.
No. It's a devastating death. It really is, though, because the way that they play it out, right? Foggy's on the phone, like we said, and we're thinking, oh man, this witness is going to get messed up. Foggy's going to go run to his apartment, and he's going to die because Matt, let him go. But no, like it's within what we thought was the safe space. Like, once we hear that he's like, he wanted to figure out where you were, it's like, oh man, that's it. And once we see Bullseye's, in his glove, the bullseye mark, once we see him in a sniper's perch, we're like, that's it. I think for me, that sealed his fate then and there. Like, Foggy's not making it. And yeah, sure enough, he did not. But then the way that they played it masterfully to me is how throughout the entire fight, which is probably like, 7 minutes about, Matt keeps going back to Foggy's heartbeat.
Oh, bro, so good.
And his lung, his breathing. And you hear that through various times in the fight. Like, he'll fight, he's fighting Bullseye. He'll stop, take a second to hear what Karen's saying to him, how his breathing is. And we hear it consistently get slower and slower. His breath just more labored. Fantastic. Because in my mind, it really felt like Matt was trying to beat Bullseye so he can go help. Him. That in his mind, if I beat him quick enough, I can go help him out.
But isn't that the beauty of the struggle and setting the tone? I need to save my best friend, my guy, but I also understand that I have a cold-blooded killer in here that is truly killing everyone with anything he can get his hands on. This guy is just a walking murder machine, and I have to stop him. I'm Daredevil and I'm Matt Murdock. Which one takes priority? He chose to stop Bullseye. Could he have picked Foggy up and done some CGI run and got him somewhere in time? I don't know. Maybe. But then what happens? Karen dies. He saved Karen. Bullseye was definitely going to kill Karen. Like, definitely going to kill Karen.
Oh, everybody in that bar.
You know what I mean?
Everybody in that bar.
Josie's was a target, which, by the way, give me another MCU villain. Who's putting a bar on notice like that? I don't know.
I mean, it just the way that he went in, he goes in, he just starts throwing knives at whoever's walking, whoever's there. He'll throw one at Matt, land it, throw one on a civilian, throw two on Matt, throw another one at a civilian. He's fighting Matt to where they get into that where they're playing pool. And he just chucks that cue ball in that poor woman's face.
Dude, that lady was just, bro, coughing.
I felt so bad. That dude was freaking crazy out there. I was like, yo, what the heck is his problem?
That's just Bullseye. Yeah. And I've seen people say, oh, man, like, they didn't interpret things from Frank Miller's comic. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? This felt like that come to life. Different, fight area. But this is the kind of thing that Daredevil or Bullseye does. He just goes in there. He doesn't care who you are. You are literally just another body to him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you are. And if Daredevil doesn't stop him, a lot of people are going to get hurt, which is the very cool moral dilemma of hopefully of what they're going to set up, which they do very well in the books of, should Daredevil allow him to live? Because he knows what he's capable of, and he knows well that when he gets the next chance, he is going to do it. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. He is going to take it, and he's going to take as many people out as he can.
Yeah. Which it does set up an interesting dynamic of like knowing that he has 2 life sentences and he's in prison. Because obviously for us, it's just like, okay, when are you getting out? Which I will say could be something they incorporate as they kind of like, we'll get to this, but like knowing a weapon like that is still healthy, fully recovered, healed in the prison where I'm like, I don't trust that at all. Like, I don't trust that. And you think my guy Fisk isn't going to knock on a jail cell and be like, I need you. I need you. And when that happens, I'm going to crap all over the place. My couch ruined.
Dude, if we get like a Bullseye suit too, like actual suit,
don't play games, dog.
Probably crisp.
Quick thing, Spider Brando. I want to ask you this because you had mentioned something earlier when we were talking about. Did you feel the bridge from Netflix to this series? I'm curious if because for me in the first 15 minutes, I saw the same faces. I got the sounds. I got the theme music. I got a new theme. I got the bar and all the people, everything, Hell's Kitchen. We were really immersed into it. We got Murdoch, Nelson, and Paige. They were doing their things. What else? If it doesn't feel to this point like it's Netflixy, what else do you think would have been missing, or kind of what did you like if you do feel that it really hit?
I mean, I made a comment earlier about it being up in the air with the Netflixy stuff, but that was more of just Kanan storyline wise,
Gotcha.
On a technical standpoint,
yeah,
and quality and writing and that choreography, fighting choreography and stuff like that. You could fully tell that it's the original team working on it again. But my thing was just I still want to know exactly what the heck happened over the last 5 years, or however long it's been since we last saw them.
Mhm.
And I want to hear MCU references. It's I get, we know it's fully canon now, but that's just a little pet peeve, I guess. I don't really care much anymore. I'm just happy that, especially after episode 1, now that Karen is in San Francisco and Foggy is in the ground, doesn't really. It's yeah,
No
it's
respect
its
for
own soft
Foggy.
reboot. I mean, R.I.P. the man, but we gotta keep moving forward, as my tattoo says. Without the R, without the Foggy.
always grammar check your tattoos, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, no, but I think to that point they do a really good job of at least establishing kind of what went on for Matt Murdock, right? And I love that they don't spend time recapping Kingpin. Just because they're hey, we know you know what he's been through. Even if it wasn't great, we at least know that you know that. And the subtle references yeah. The references when they're the references that when they're in that that diner and he's do you have children? He's no, you. And he's hey, I had a mentor. And he's didn't she shoot you in the face? And they just both laugh about it. I enjoyed seeing that side of them, but clearly they're heading down a collision course that's going to explode at some point very soon. Again, the themes that this show is doing, especially with both of them, how they are both suppressing who they are by trying to do good, right? Both two very violent men who Matt hiding through law and trying to serve justice in a different way, but Fisk trying to do good overall. It's just not fully him. And I think he knows that. And the Vanessa piece, and maybe Lou, this is kind of where you were going with this earlier. Vanessa being there and now kind of being in a way, a thorn on his side is very interesting to me, because this whole time she's been the thing that keeps him level set. And now she's kind of the thing that's potentially going to cause him to tumble.
Yeah. I think that's a super interesting dynamic, because the way that they did it in Netflix, he would do anything for Vanessa. So there's a lot of the Kingpin that I feel we haven't seen. What are his selfish motivations type of thing? You know what I mean? As his character arc continues on, where is that piece to where we see him truly want to be the mayor, the leader of New York, but what is his brand of justice that we kind of said? What is Kingpin's rule? Where does he really go from here? And how much, this is what we talked about last week, how far does he want his reach to extend? because for the most part, I mean, he pretty much owned New York, and then obviously Vanessa stepped in and did his thing while he was getting enlightened. But I I think she'll be a nice catalyst to trigger him at some point, like you were mentioning, to really either he's like, get out of my face, or she pushes him so far. Because I mean, when they're on the rooftop and he's like, I know Adam or somebody, and I was like, oh. But he's like, I'm cool with it. And then you have the campaign person that's like forcing them to be together because he's like, your numbers go up when people see the couple together. That's just the way it is. And you're playing the game, that's gonna matter. And he doesn't want anything to really like do. Like, they're sitting apart in the therapist's office, which, by the way, we'll get to the therapist and stuff. I thought that was super cool dynamic. But I know I saw some people kind of hating on it. They're like, what's the point of Vanessa in this? Again, all of these storylines and these sub characters are in orbit around the two giants that are Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk. And at some points, these comets will collide with each other or them. And I personally think right now, again, it's an MCU show, so take it with a grain of salt. But the road that they're building this up, again, seeping information for the storyline is the biggest thing. Like, it is just dripping, just drip, 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 drip. And at some point, that faucet's going to bust. And when it does, we're going live real quick, everyone. So definitely stay tuned because it's going to be wild. So.
Yeah. Everybody's a test for each other within the series, and I like that, whether it be intentionally or not, right? Vanessa being the big test for Kingpin. Are you really a changed man? Truly. Matt Murdock being a test for Kingpin, and vice versa. They're a test for each other. Are you really the person who has given up being a vigilante? I don't believe you. And Matt being, I don't believe you are a person who is capable of good because I know what you are. He said it so many times to the therapist, to a couple people in the series, that he's like, if I knew him better, or he's like, wait, no, I do know him better. He's in this for something. I just don't know what yet. And Kingpin doesn't even really know fully what yet for himself either. I think they're both trying to find that. And once they do, that's when things are going to hit the fan, and it's going to be like, okay, that's where the bigger test is even going to be now.
Dude, but even to that point, though, like through these two episodes, I think at this point, Fisk is surrounded with more of those tests, just overall from like the Vanessa mob side of things. But like, then you got, was James Gandolfini or whatever his name is, like the younger kid, his son. Him kind of being that younger guy in the political realm that's like, I want to be something, it kind of reminds me, I'm not comparing the two, but it kind of reminds me of that Penguin dynamic a little bit, of like someone wants to be a made man type of thing, right? And kind of like showing him the ropes, giving him kind of that BB Ulrich sticking her nose maybe where it doesn't belong at some point. But also kind of channeling that reporter aspect that Karen and Ben had in the previous season and kind of give us that element, which I think she has super cool parts in this. But then, yeah, like even the police commissioner, and I was like, bro, you said what to my guy's face? Where he's like, I'm going to expose you for what you are. And then he's like, oh, by the way, I got this cheesesteak sandwich. It's really good. Picture of his bastard child. And what, like, that was just my guy, like, I know I'm all over the map, but like, people, this show is so complex and was so good through 2 episodes. And I think Fisk is way, way, way more interesting than he ever was in the MCU at this point. I have a lot of faith that they can see this there.
Yeah.
I was really excited to see that they kind of showed Fisk and Kingpin holding himself back, but then you get to see at the end of the episode Daredevil or Matt not holding himself back and kind of snapping on those people. And
Well,
like, yo, that's pretty cool duality.
To be fair, we haven't seen him do it, but they have made it a point to show his knuckles like
Messed
healing.
up, yeah.
So he's doing something. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if he's just like beating the hell out of people randomly, just like training or something.
Punching a wall, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be.
And they also kind of imply it with how fidgety he is. If you notice, he's very fidgety with his hands. He's constantly like tapping. In other words, this is getting to him. He just is able to, when it comes with other people, he's able to compose himself, right? But I would also say Matt has done a good job too, because he, towards the end of of episode 2, when he takes the beating from the 2 crooked cops, he doesn't fight back until they pull the gun on him. But then once they do that, that's when it's like, oh man, you really messed up. He most definitely did not. I don't think the one cop will be able to pull anything with that type of broken arm. Jesus, that was a brutal beatdown, because it wasn't a fight once Matt brought himself to it.
Super cool scene though. Super cool scene. Like high anxiety, high stress moment. Gets the guy out of the apartment, standing there just looking cool and suave, and he's like, it's my client, blah blah blah. And then old guy dirty cop is like, oh yeah, just like crush your skull real quick in the middle of the floor. I don't know how they're gonna get out of that. Like, does he show up the court with just like a bloody face, and that guy's in a neck brace or something like that, and he's like, I withdraw myself from this case, not guilty. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, you two are both roughed up at the same. Is he alive? Is he dead? He's not dead.
Yeah, Nate saying about the fidgets that are him containing his anger for Kingpin, and absolutely 100%. And I think Matt has them as well, just in his own ways, where I think he lets his senses go too far sometimes, or not too far, but in moments where maybe he should be paying attention to something else, he gets himself distracted.
But guys, real quick to this point though, just super quick to interject. From Frank Miller specifically, is this not spot on with both of these characters trying to deny who they are? If you look at Frank Miller's redo, I keep saying Man Against Fear. What the hell is it?
Born Again?
Nope, not Born Again. The redo of the origin. Man Without Fear? Yeah, Man Without Fear. Over and over and over again, Matt Murdock is this dude that just beat the hell out of people, had no remorse. Like, he was not pulling his punches, and he had to learn to deny himself of these things in order to be the hero that he wants to be moving forward. But this very much is within character of who Matt Murdock is. No questions asked. The dude that can go far enough, that can go overboard. And I thought that was super cool to see that on display. Both episodes. They're both trying so hard not to feed the demons inside of them in certain ways.
Which is why their conversation with each other is so compelling. Not just because it's like, oh man, Daredevil and Kingpin. It's like, no, they know what they are to each other, and they know what they truly are as men. They know what kind of man they both are, and they can be that freely. It's comfortable. They don't have to hide it because they know. They both know, and that's kind of something that Frank Miller always did, where it's their mutual obsession that really drives them sometimes to their own downfall, right? It's the guilt that they both have in certain ways, right? Kingpin with Vanessa and Matt with really his religion, right? A perfect example is when he goes to the church and he just can't walk in, but he listens. He uses his senses to hear. It's just that mutual obsession between each other drives them into a point where it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for this character dynamic to keep going, because I do think it's going to really explore more.
Yeah.
After seeing these first 2 episodes and the dynamics that were set up, I'm no longer that concerned or scared for Punishers, and I cannot wait to see them continue it from the Netflix era.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore their morality duality against each other.
Yeah.
And Bullseye, perfect example of it from what you mentioned earlier. And I hope Punisher has something to do with Bullseye later on. Just like if they have to team up to fight him or something. Oh my god, that'll be some great
Punisher's
philosophical
nasty.
debates.
Yeah.
We need another rooftop scene so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, SB needs another philosophy project.
Yes.
Another A+.
I don't even remember what I got on it, but I just had a blast doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. To your point, though, whenever Punisher does show up, that's when I think it's going to be another like another live grenade that they throw into this already giant fire that's going on, because clearly the Frank Castle is Frank Castle. It's going to be wild. But then it's also like, how exactly is he going to deal with these crooked cops? Because at the end of episode 2, we saw that before they shot Matt, one of them has the Punisher logo tattooed on his wrist. And we know that that is not at all what the Punisher stands for. So these poor cops are not about to make it out. I really don't think.
Hey, super quick, want to just touch on a couple of the questions in the chat. I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I think people don't realize just how often he uses these powers through the first 2 episodes. Even they go as far, and I don't know how Charlie Cox does it, but like he like moves his jaw or something to like make it look like he's pulsing when they zoom in on him.
Yeah.
When he's kind of activating his powers and like listening to the apartment across the street, or he's walking with old girl and he hears the news when Fisk announces the new mayor, whatever it might be. Obviously the foggy thing in the beginning. What do you guys think of just kind of how they're displaying his powers just overall? Like, is it what you wanted? Is it more than what you expected? Is it just the perfect amount?
I really like the aspect ratio shift. I'm a big fan of when WandaVision and Fantastic Four trailer did that, and like does that when they switch back from like the retro stuff to the modern stuff. So seeing it with the sensory powers made it really cool, and I think they did. I'm enjoying the heart. This is weird to say, but I feel like I'm enjoying the heartbeats more than it was in the Netflix show, and they just feel more like, damn, like he could really hear that stuff. I mean, maybe just because I guess the first one we got exposed to was Foggy dying, unfortunately, and that just hit so hard. So like everything after that was just like, damn, like they all just hit hard. But I don't know. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to really show it, especially since it's when he's not within the Daredevil costume. Like it shows you that Matt has something interesting to him too. And again, it's a great way to show that, to exemplify that. It really reminds me of like in video games when you're like, they're like, hey, focus in on this with your select, hearing thing. Press the touchpad to focus.
Yeah.
That's what that feels like.
Yeah. He feels super, and I think, Rome, to 2 points you put in, I thought they're very interesting. I did see some comments kind of aligning with these 2 things. One being not really showing his blindness in previous shows, and then kind of putting his faith in the background compared to the previous show. And again, we're only through 2 episodes, but I think one thing that everyone has to remember is like Daredevil technically has more screen time than any hero. He has more hours than I think any other hero technically in the MCU, if we're going to consider everything that he did in Daredevil canon, plus the Defenders. So like, it's not like he's some new character. You know what I mean? Like, I think at this point, everyone's like, he's blind. Like, I don't know if they need to see him. Like, they did some subtle things where he has his glasses off, and Charlie Cox does a really, really, really strong presentation of just like the off eye contact that he does. It's not direct. The way that he moves, the subtle things when he's in his apartment, there's no lights on. He doesn't need light. You know what I mean? It's like there are certain subtleties that happen to where it's like, you're blind. You're definitely blind. Shout out to his electric bill. But
and
go ahead.
I was gonna say though, maybe to Rome's point, and the blindness is an act, which I think people kind of forget. Like, he can see in his own way, It's just he has to put the act that, yeah, I am a blind man.
Was it
Like
season 2 or 3 they showed that? Where everything is like that, like yellow, orange, like everyone has an outline, and like he explains like I can't see. I think it might have been 2.
Yeah.
I think it was 2.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly how he describes in World on Fire.
Yeah. So like, and in theory too, a blind person, if they go somewhere, often enough, they are going to be familiar enough with their settings. But again, Matt, it's an act. So sometimes is it going to drop? Yeah, because for example, the scene where he's with the therapist and he just like picks her up out of the way of these people walking, and she's like, what was that? And he's like, oops, I fell. No, you didn't. Like, 1, smooth line. 2, no, you didn't. So, I think at that point they're just trying to show you that, it's him putting it on, especially like for example, one that I really enjoyed, when he goes to see Hector Ayala, White Tiger, in prison the first time. Like when he walks into the office, he kind of like bumps into the door a little bit. Like he bumps into the doorway. It's not something he needed to do, but it's to put on the act for the officers watching.
Which, I mean, falls very much in line with his level of awareness. I mean, it's 10 out of 10, just period, across the board. But one other thing I did want to throw out here, and I think is interesting, as we kind of went back and did our comic reads and all that kind of stuff. The faith piece, I think that comes into play when he's at his lowest and most broken, which he's not there yet. So I think there's still that I want to be back with my faith, but I'm, there are a lot of things kind of keeping me from walking through those doors. But even in the Born Again run, he's at his lowest point after he gets wrecked. And then that's when he goes back on the upswing, when he like really embraces it. And I think he's willing to kind of step foot in there. I think that would come in time here. But I think, again, that's another part of the slow burn of him kind of going back to being a full-time Daredevil, a full-time Catholic, a full-time friend, a full-time partner. He's giving pieces right now to each of these areas and not really his whole self. So, faith was set up in the first episode of the Netflix show and a constant thing. Yeah, but I think he's denying a lot of himself right now and kind of who he is, and he's carrying a lot of guilt, especially after Bullseye killed the priest in season 3 as well. I know that's something that you'd mentioned he's struggling with. So I just think he's not fully there as like kind of a clean slate where he's going in for his confession, Father, I've sinned type of thing, like those comfort things that helped him kind of navigate being a vigilante or the man, whatever he called himself before, fully Daredevil. His roots in his world are shaken. No Foggy, Karen's gone. His faith and stuff are kind of shaken and all that as well. And I think he's kind of finding comfort in newer places for now.
Yeah. Well, I think going back to kind of something we talked about earlier, I think there's 2 really good moments of how they exemplify that he still does have a faith. The first one being when he's talking to Kingpin and he tells him what he grew up believing in between retribution and changing and people changing, right? I think if you're not someone who does have a faith, that's not something you would say. So clearly he does have a faith, but then also when he's at the church and doesn't go in, they were very selective with the wording that they used, and I don't want to like paraphrase it so I don't butcher it, but they say something along the lines of like, if you forgive me, just say the word, something like that, to that extent, kind of showing that he has this guilt of like, I cannot go before God because I have not done what I've needed to. Not just with him, but with the people in my life. And I think if you are someone who has faith, if you feel like your life isn't going in the way that you see it going, then you don't feel worthy to stand within the presence of God. And I think that's what he's feeling. Like, I can't go in there. Mm-hmm. Like, I will not be accepted because I have failed in what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he has it. It's just something that has to constantly be built up again. Kind of like what they do within in the comic runs, honestly. Like it's him at, kind of like Lou said, him at his lowest and slowly getting back up there, because that does take time.
Yeah. White Tiger. We didn't talk too much about him. We didn't get a whole lot of him. We got some snippets and some samples of it. How'd you guys feel about White Tiger, SB?
I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know much about White Tiger. R.I.P. the actor also. I played him. And I think it's a cool subplot that Matt was like fully in to defend him, and then realized that he is a white tiger. I feel like Matt should have caught on to that, like, you know, like doing his background research on someone. But I don't know. I thought he's a pretty cool character, and I'm excited to see more.
Yeah.
There was I had a really good thought last night when I was watching the episode, and I forgot what I wanted to say. But there's something he said to Daredevil reminded me of another, just reminded me of something, but I forgot what it was at the moment. So if it comes back, I'll chime in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I was just gonna say, first Latino superhero in comics, White Tiger, Hector Ayala. Debuted in the pages of Spider-Man, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, no, them using him to be the vigilante, I think, is very cool, right? Again, very timely with certain topics, him being Hispanic and kind of all the things going on. I'm curious to see where they go. I hope we get to see him more in costume, right? Because so far all we've seen are the glimpses between like the news reports that happened within like the first episode, and then Matt showing him in the prison what they found on like social media and stuff. So yeah, I hope we see more. I do think he's going to be a very compelling character, though.
Yeah, the costume piece is a really interesting thing, because I think right now, like, we know that Matt has more costumes, right? We just saw kind of like his classic burgundy red. We want to see White Tiger in costume more. We know that Bullseye is going to have a next step. We know that just other vigilantes do exist, which Kingpin has referenced as well. And the funny thing is to me, Spider-Man, Punisher, that type of thing. The interesting thing is, like, we've obviously known for a while that aliens exist in the MCU. The whole thing with the blip and Thanos. But it still feels, before the show, of like, where are all the characters? The street level heroes, those that are running around in New York, like, where are all of them? And other New Yorks just felt so simplified. Like, even Miss Marvel, I know it's New Jersey, but it's like, you're really like the only hero. And then you have the DODC that's like, more people exist, whatever. But this feels different from really any other show, even like She-Hulk. She-Hulk, they just kind of like peppered heroes and characters and cases and those villains and like, oh, they're here. But this show, it feels like a real dedicated, all of these characters, I think at some point are going to show up in some accurate suits. I mean, are we not going to geek over a Punisher, a Bullseye, White Tiger, Daredevil, and Muse all in their fits? Bro, let's take my money.
Yeah.
Just wait till the Funkos leak it.
Yeah, Funko notorious for that, as we got some other looks at other characters. But Nate kind of, saying something that I did also like as well, that they make a very big point of him saying various times throughout like his first initial meetings with Matt that he's like, hey, I don't have my amulet. The amulet is what gives me the powers to do kind of what I do. I was just defending myself. So it's like, yeah, no, this is great. Hopefully we get to see more of that and kind of Daredevil lean into that, because Muse is also kind of like that within doing some research. Almost otherworldly in a way. kind of hard to explain like what he is exactly and who he is. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of tie all that together.
Yeah. Which I think really bodes well for Muse in this show. I think for a lot of people, it's gonna be like when you get the explainer and kind of the backstory of it, it'll be fresh for a lot of people, which I think will ultimately be really cool. One quick thing. Rome said a good point. It feels like more like a crime drama than a superhero show. Is that a plus for the series to this point?
I think so, because that's kind of how that's how the original one felt. So it just kind of translates well.
And I think to that point, if with what the story they're trying to tell is, where it's like Kingpin is trying to outlaw vigilantes, and this is kind of that first big step for him. Like, yeah, it would kind of make sense for that battle to start within the courts before it ends up being physical. Like, they kind of need for it to go through law and like how Matt Murdock sees it, how the people see it, how Fist sees it, how everyone else around them see it. So yeah, no, I think that's a huge plus for the show. I know some people don't like it, and that's understandable. But again, I think at that point, Daredevil might not be the character for you.
Yeah, I mean, still to that point, I think Daredevil is, the jury was kind of out, but for me, Daredevil solidified himself as an ace in the MCU right off the bat. Really, I don't have a question about that. I'll just be curious to see where this kind of ends off and where he gets catapulted to. But so far, I mean, him and Bullseye, gosh, it's good. And I'm really excited for what they're going to do with Punisher as well. How far are they going to go with him? Like, there are a lot of things. I'm really excited to see what comes next. I'm really, really excited. And if they dropped all 9 episodes, I probably would have never went to sleep.
Yeah, I was to say, work probably wouldn't have seen me today if they had all 9.
Like, Lou, are you sick? I'm like, no, man, I'm watching Daredevil. I'm like,
down and help.
Shut the whole place down. Yeah.
In the kitchen cooking with Marvel.
I won't say they cooked, but I will say that they might be cooking something very, very good here. They're not cooked yet.
It's good to say that.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah, it's
okay. Preliminary, since this is the type of podcast that we're bringing stuff back, and I know we haven't done this in a while. Is it getting 2? Is it getting 1?
I'm gonna go 1.
One.
I'm gonna go 1. By the end of it, it could get 2.
I feel that.
Could get 3.
3? Ooh, I don't know. Where's the
that's me. What?
The logo, obviously.
Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, Point3.
Yeah. Rome's, we spoke about him earlier in the episode, but we really like him. He feels a little bit better than the other series, just based off these first 2 episodes. Still a little early to tell, but hopefully they keep that going. So we enjoyed him for what he was. But yeah, hopefully he also gets. Hopefully he gets this, and he doesn't get this, because he's been this.
He's been that, but I think it's very, very smart the way that they were basically retelling him on the road from, like, they're going to show you the evolution of like him getting back to being the Kingpin. And for fans, when you get to the end of that, they're going to be like, oh, I remember this is Kingpin. And for newer people, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's Kingpin. Like, that I think is going to be super cool, where it's potentially you're going to get this and that, which is really hard to do. But yeah, he's an A+ in my mind right now on his build for this. Guys, we forgot about, like, this just washed away Echo and Hawkeye for me. I don't even care. Yeah. My headcanon deleted.
They don't exist.
No.
Yeah, their sins are forgiven.
Do you think we get an Echo drop in the show, though? Or not drop, because he kind of did reference Maya a little bit.
Yeah,
but
like a cameo.
Like Echo cameo.
I don't think so. I don't think we do. but I won't be mad if we do.
I feel that.
Agree. One last question. We didn't talk about it yet, but what do we think of? First off, what do we think of Matt's game? And second,
that swag.
His new girl.
Swag? That ain't swag, bro. That is. I don't know what other way to describe it without getting the podcast restricted in some way. But Matt has crazy game because this woman was ready, rip roaring ready on date 2.
Check, please.
Check, please. Let's go. I'm ready.
It was smooth. Those are fun. I know those are like things that if you're creating a superhero story, like, would you put that in there? A lot of people wouldn't even think to do something like that. But again, it just shows you where Matt's at, and just Matt's a player. He's a player. Shout out all you She-Hulk haters. Daredevil would never degrade himself and do that. My guy slings. Okay? He just does. That's what happens. It's on full display, baby.
Like, if he had, I know we haven't brought it up in a minute, but he probably does have that bulge, like Rams is saying. Like, there's a reason he's out here in the streets fighting crime and changing lives in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Because, man,
once you go Matt, you never go back.
to be honest, man, being with a blind man will help you see. I'm glad you like that because that was completely on the fly. I don't even know if that's a saying, but
it's Point3 certified.
Yeah. I was gonna say I do remember McDuffie being a love interest for him as well, so I'm glad they're kind of not doing that though.
Yeah.
But to your point though, going really quick with the therapist, I think she's gonna play very nicely into the story, right? Both for what it means for Matt, but also being the connective hook between Kingpin, Vanessa, the three of them. Also potentially, if because we didn't talk about it, but there's a scene in, I think it's episode 2, where she's at a book signing for her book, and this kid kind of comes up to her and he's like, I need help. And then that's it. So potentially Muse, from what a couple of us were thinking.
Can you guys guess that actor's age?
He has to be very young. No.
26.
We said kid. 31.
Oh wow, not a kid. Older than me.
He's 31. No joke. I looked it up and I was like, okay, I remember that because we watched Wednesday and I know he's from Wednesday, and I was like, oh shoot, okay. And I looked him up real quick and I was like, bro, my guy's 31 years old.
Wow. Okay.
I said 26. That was close.
Bro, I'm 26. that ain't close. Don't put that age on me.
Fun fact, Chad. I'm older than the actor we're referencing.
Know,
so take.
Yeah. No, in all honesty, though, I am interested to see what they do, though, because it's also the therapist does kind of know the history that Matt has with Kingpin. Because in their first walk together, she's like, "Hey, why don't you like him?" He's like, "We just have history."
Picked up on that, yeah.
And so and even the way she kind of like not blows him off, but like has to rain check the date. She's like, "I have a new client. Okay, bye."
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, if I give him the time to explain that, hey, I'm meeting with Wilson Fisk.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Oh, when he finds out. Say again?
So she's definitely got to keep that confidential. Whoever she meets with.
Is it confidential when the city's on fire? I don't know.
True.
When Vanessa leaves him? That's what I said, not blowing him off, but it was kind of like I have to go by.
Priority type of thing. Like, I got my job. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do we think Wilson planned that? I don't think so. I think it was just a we need to talk to somebody together, because I do think Wilson does want to save that marriage. Like, he clearly loves Vanessa. But it's going to be kind of at like what cost? Is she going to be the thing that brings him down, or is she going to elevate him? And right now it feels like she's kind of the thing that would bring him crashing back down into that criminal underworld.
And I really don't think that he knows yet, especially at the point where, like, yes, he does play games for sure. But when him and Matt sit down, there's a point where, like, there's no reference of like a girlfriend. Like, he doesn't ask. So they're not pointing that to the audience of like, he's kind of keeping tabs from that perspective yet. But then also, like, at the book signing, it was the assistant guy or whoever in his campaign that kind of presented that to them. And then she signed it, and then Kingpin came in. And it's a very personal thing. Will he find out?
I think
maybe. So. And if he does find out, would he use that against him? That's where I think yes. Then we kind of come into play. But for right now, I think it's just like, it's not a plot convenience. Not throwing those words out here. Not throwing a convenience thing out there. But I do think eventually they find out. Maybe in the office, and he's got a picture of her on, she's got a picture of him on the desk or something, and he notices that, or I don't know. Or she slips and says something about relationships. But she's probably dead. I don't think she makes it.
Yeah. It'll be, again, very interesting what they're setting up between Kingpin, between Muse, when he does come into play, between Punisher, between White Tiger. They have so many characters, and so far, between the 2 episodes, I do think they've done a good job of at least introducing everybody well enough to that whenever we see them next in whatever episode, they're going to feel pretty good.
Yeah. Really good momentum. I think really good momentum.
I'm excited.
There's a lot.
For the rest. I'm excited for that 1 week where we get the double episode drop again.
Yeah.
The next 2 weeks are just single episodes, and then 3 weeks will be double episode.
It's interesting. Historically, MCU, Disney Plus shows, they're like one of their best episodes, or when it really picks up, is episode 3. And like, that's our next. We're already riding high. I'm very curious to see how they leave us with the first singular episode.
Yeah. I'm curious to see why they want to put those 2 together.
Mm-hmm.
Like what happens in there that they're like, no, put those 2 together, so that way they know we hear them, we see them.
Yeah.
If anyone died within the first 15 minutes again, I don't know if I could take it.
Bro, I'm here for it.
I'm
Get them all out.
Yeah.
Bro, well, Rome's 100%, bro. We haven't been feeling like this about Marvel in a minute. So, a lot of good projects, but this has got like potential great tag to it. Potentially.
Yeah. Potentially 2 chef's kiss 0.3 hands up for our audio only listeners. I just realized we didn't explain what that was earlier. But yeah, we normally do this hand gesture that shows that something's really good. We haven't done it in forever.
But if you're in Discord,
you see it.
They are in Discord. They don't. Oops.
Yeah, oopsie.
Expose myself. Good times. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that was like a great moment? Best moment? Best moment. Yeah.
Definitely the opening 15. That bullseye fight was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree.
Yeah.
That was chef's kiss. The one shot. I like the one shot.
Yeah. Just very cool.
Honorable mention. I know it's super subtle, but when Fisk is standing on the building and Matt's walking through the crowd, and then there's that fight that happens, and he's like, screw it, and then puts away his stick, and then there's just that moment of like, I don't know, the tension between the 2 of them was fantastic. And I think really just like solidified the tone at that moment for like what the series is going to be going forward. But yeah, beginning fight scene, perfect for what it needed to be, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
I think that's it.
Yeah, that's all I got for it.
That's all we got. That's all we got. Well, listen, everyone, we appreciate you watching live. If you're watching this after it's been posted, or you listen to this on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts, we've been your favorite trio of hosts. We hope to see you back here next Wednesday to talk about episode 3 with us. Again, if you want to talk about it at any point of the day, join our Discord. Links are going to be down in the descriptions. Head on over to our socials where you can link up with us there as well. But stay tuned. Keep your ear close to the Point 3 podcast because there is a lot that is going to be going on over the course of the next 3-4 months. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. MCU, DCU, like there's a lot of really good superhero content plus coming out. So feel free to chat along with us. You guys are not alone. There's tons of nerds out there. So if you are doing this by yourself, hop on over with us, jump on the train, because we are going just anywhere and everywhere we can for all these projects. But everyone, until next Wednesday, 3 things that you got to keep doing. You got to keep reading. You got to keep watching. You got to keep nerding out. We will see you next Wednesday. Take care, everyone.